My hair today, messy. My eyesight, very poor. My enjoyment of these books, questionable. Hi everybody, welcome to the channel. My name is Mariana, and in today's video we're talking about all the books that I read in March. Welcome to Lucifer's Library. I hope you have a fun stay here. Normally I don't like doing wrap-ups because I don't have any specific feelings on the books that I read or any specific thoughts. Because burnout is real, I read for enjoyment and I like to just move on to something else without thinking too much about the books that I'm reading. But I'll try my best to recollect my thoughts and opinions on these books that I read in the month of March. I did play my TBR game and I also participated in the Greek Godathon. Plus I also participated in the Witcher Along and Buzzwordathon. So today we're just gonna talk about all the 15 books that I read. Normally I go about it in the order that I read these books in. However, today we're doing from my least favorite books to my top favorite books. I am going to be starting with a book that I gave no rating to because I don't tend to rate non-fiction books. So the book that I did not rate is Egyptian Gods by Stephen Weaver. It is 26 pages long. I got it for free on Kindle and I decided to just cram it in there on the last day of March because it's a short book and I was supposed to read it in April, but you know, I had some time, so I just shoved it in March. And overall, it wasn't my favorite mythology book or book about gods. I had no 1-star reads. I had a 2-star read, which is technically You Started It by Lana Wood Johnson. And this is a book that is told primarily through text messages and it is quite short, so you can read it like that. So it's about this guy, and I had to look this name up, Martin Nathaniel Monroe II, who texted this girl from his class, and she mistakes him for someone else, I think his cousin, because there's two of them, okay? Then they start talking. It becomes increasingly clear that this girl thinks he is his cousin and she actually does not like him. Out of the two of them, he is the least liked because of this friendship drama that he had with her best friend. When Martin finds out that she thinks he's the other guy and that she does not actually like him, he tries to appeal to her and gets to know her in real life, and she has no idea that she's actually been talking to him, so she was kind of like catfished, but he doesn't have the courage to tell her. It was a cute read. I just don't think it's that memorable in my opinion. I wouldn't pick it up again. Then we have a 2.75-star read, and that is Fearless by Simone Lee Martin. That is the 4th book in the Hunter Moon Academy series, which was my favorite series of February, I believe. When I was deciding what books were my favorite to put down in this 2022 favorite spread, I just put the entire Hunter Moon Academy. And let me tell you, I was like, why was this last book needed? Listen, I get it. If you are a certain shipper, cool, good for you. You won in this book. But for me, I never imagine myself someone who will root for the main character to end up with 2 guys. But in this book, I just needed it, okay? I needed it. Anyway, long story short, my favorite character died. I was devastated. I was disappointed. I was crushed. It's like this book tore out my heart, put it in a blender, and just turned it on. Heart smoothie. I cried. I was not okay. And then after that, I was in a reading slump, so I genuinely was just looking for some cute books to read, and I ended up falling into a contemporary romance smut hole. This book just tore out my heart and I was not okay, and it is my least favorite book in the series just because I had different expectations. I'm just gonna pretend this book didn't happen. And I had only one 3-star read, which is The Upside of Falling by Alex Light. And this features the main character who does not believe in love, but when her former best friend turned kinda mean girl, or you know, estranged best friend, tries to tease her about being single, this school's most popular boy decides that he's gonna pass as her boyfriend. It's the fake dating trope, okay? He needs someone to appease his parents and she needs someone to keep up the ruse, okay? Yeah, it's a typical rom-com, nothing too special about it. I want to say that this book also deals with parental issues such as a father abandoning a child, and that is one of the good things by how this book tackles it. The hurt, the proper like representation of the mixed emotions and how the actions of a parent have consequences on the child. But the bad thing about this book is how it tackled a certain scene that I just did not enjoy the way something happened and how it got resolved, or I should say unresolved. It feels like there were some loose ends. All right, we have 3.25 star ratings, and let's just start with the first one. Percy Jackson and the Titan's Curse. I think I rated it 4 stars the first time I read it. This was a reread, very recent, by Rick Riordan, and it's very short. In this book we meet Nico and Bianca. I did enjoy it more than I did the last book, but at this point in time I think these books are not going to be any more than 3-star ratings. I do hold a certain sense of nostalgia towards these. The next book I rated also 3.25 stars is Stalking Jack the Ripper by Carrie Maniscalco. This was a recommendation from Esme from Bookish Buddies here on YouTube and from Paradise of Pages on Instagram and Twitter. This book is about the main character who works in a morgue. What would you call her? Mortician? In this era, there is Jack the Ripper who starts stalking the streets and killing women, and they need to find out who it is. Throughout all of this book, I was very suspicious of this one character, and I was not able to relax for any reason because I was like, I'm watching you. I don't want it to be you, but I just have a feeling that it is you. Anyway, that ruined my enjoyment because I was really paranoid. I loved the wit of the main characters, like the main female character with the love interest, and I love the constant back and forth and flirting and the mystery and trying to figure out who it is. But the actual plot twist felt a little bit underwhelming just because I did consider who was actually Jack the Ripper, but I just didn't really feel like I cared enough that this character was Jack the Ripper, just because. No, I'm not gonna say anything. I have an explanation, but I don't want to say it because I don't want to spoil it. And the last book I rated 3.25 stars is If I Never Met You by Vari McFarlane. I hope I'm pronouncing the author's name right. And that book has stuck with me ever since reading it. I'm not gonna lie. I was so pissed off. So angry. I felt this character's hurt. Anyway, let me just tell you what it's about before I get into it. It features our main character who is in an 18-year relationship with her boyfriend. She is 36 years old and she wants to have babies, okay? She wants to have a family. He doesn't want to get married, so she's not gonna get married, but she does want to have children. Anyway, when she presents it to him, you know, he takes it like, oh, I'm not sure if I'm ready, blah, blah, blah. And then he later breaks up with her. He's unhappy in this relationship. He doesn't want to be with her. He's not ready, or he doesn't want to have children. Anyway, 2 months later, she finds out that he got another girl pregnant. I was so furious. She asked him, is there anybody else? And he's like, no, I never cheated on you. But that's such a bullshit response, because just because you didn't have sex, it doesn't mean that you haven't emotionally cheated. And it turns out that she works in the same building as her ex. Of course, our main character, she has the worst friends ever. They talk about her in the group chat, not even knowing that she's in the group chat, and they basically take his side. Everybody keeps interfering in her life. She has co-workers that feel entitled to her. There's this guy Michael who wants to date her now that she's single, but he doesn't want to do it just yet because she's fresh out of a relationship. No, he doesn't want to ask her out just because he wants to seem like the good guy, right? He's not a good guy, let me just tell you that. Anyway, there's this guy who works in the same building. Nobody likes him just because he's arrogant and he's bossy and he gets shit done, okay? And so she gets stuck in an elevator with him. They never really spoken. Oh, also he's a flirt and he's like, you know, he likes women. So they get stuck in an elevator with him. Then she goes out for a drink with him and they ended up fake dating just because he needs to show a new side of him to his bosses in order to qualify for a promotion, just because right now nobody trusts him because he's a womanizer and nobody trusts him with women and stuff. So they decide to, you know, start fake dating, post on social media, which for him is like marriage because he never posts anything on social media regarding other women. So it was like wow. But what's most infuriating is that the boyfriend, the ex-boyfriend who cheated on her, also starts meddling. It starts saying that it's not real, she's only dating him because she wants to seem like she's fine, but she's not. And he starts just spreading these nasty rumors and starts talking to other people about their business, whereas the main character just doesn't say anything. She doesn't really defend herself. Anyway, this book pissed me off, but it made me think, and I really like it. I know I rated 3.25 stars, but for me, 3.25 stars is not a bad rating. This book is not romance. If you're looking for romance, this book is more women's literature. Moving on, we have one 3.5 star rating. I initially rated it 3.25, but then I upped it a little bit, and that is The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. This book was a little bit of a letdown for me. I maybe it's the high expectations, although I didn't really have that many high expectations. I did watch the movie prior to reading this book, and I am very happy with how the movie was filmed. I think I prefer the movie to the book, and it's basically about this girl, Lucy Hutton, who's working at the same company with this guy, what's his name? Oh, Joshua. They work at the same company, they share an office, and they have this hating game. They don't really get along, they are competitive in everything they do. They play different games, like the staring game where they just stare at each other, or they mimic each other, and they try to get into each other's heads a lot. But I wouldn't say this is a typical enemies to lovers. They don't stay enemies for that long in this book. Then we have a 3.75 star read, which is The Switch by Beth O'Leary. Does that mean I liked it more than The Hating Game? When it comes to the book, yes. But when it comes to the movie, I prefer the movie over this book. The Switch by Beth O'Leary. This is, again, women's literature. This is not romance. Don't go into it thinking it's romance. It's when grandma and granddaughter switch houses, and the grandma goes to London and the granddaughter goes to the countryside, I would say. It also deals with heavier topics such as grief, which really took me off guard. Ever since my grandpa died, and ever since like last year, I don't want to read books about grief, so that's what took me a little bit off guard. And there's not too much romance in this book. Don't go into it expecting it's romance, because it has just a brief thing in it, but it's not like, you know, flirtation, and it's not too much. By the way, also I should say I really enjoyed it more than I did The Flat Share, which is the other book from the same author. Moving on, we have 2 4-star reads, which is really good, because this month I expected to have more lower ratings. So I suppose we should start with Anne of Green Gables by Lucy Maud Montgomery. I rated this book obviously 4 stars. I really enjoyed Anne as a character. I think she is such an interesting character, and how she finds her way into the hearts of other people. I don't think that I will continue the series. There's nothing else that I can say. I don't have any particular feelings, just that I really enjoyed it. This book is about an orphan Anne who gets adopted into this family, but the thing is, they wanted a boy and they got a girl, and instead of returning her, Anne just ends up being in the family, and we basically see her grow up and become this woman. And then the second book I rated 4 stars, I actually have here. It is Sword of Destiny by, I don't know why I said by, because I can't pronounce the author's name. But this book, you see this? I have so many tabs, and I'm so excited to talk about this book when it comes to the Witcher Along live show, because this was the March book for the Witcher read along, and I have some thoughts. At the beginning of the book, I didn't enjoy it. After a 3rd short story, it really did pick up. I initially thought that I would DNF this book, then I stuck through it a little bit, pushed through, and it ended up picking up, but I didn't enjoy the philosophical undertones that this book had. I didn't like Yennefer in this book. I just didn't, okay? Moving on, there are 2 books that I rated 4.5. The first one is Ruby Red by Kirsten Gear. This is a reread. I initially rated it 5 stars when I first read it, but this time I've rated it 4.5. The first time I read it, I was a teenager, and you can definitely tell how underdeveloped my brain was, because I was just focusing on the main character and what she had to go through. But this time when I read it, I got a perspective into the other character's head, Charlotte, who was basically raised like this girl who was destined for more. She was meant to be this time traveler, whereas our main character, I think the translation in this book is Gwyneth, but in other books is Gwendolyn. The main character in this book ended up being the time traveler instead, and it turns out that she was just very underprepared for the whole thing, like not knowing anything about history, not knowing what she was dealing with, and her life being basically in danger. Whereas Charlotte, she was all prepared, but she didn't have the time traveling gene, if that makes sense. I was a little bit less judgmental when it comes to that, and I did enjoy it. It's a very quick read. I enjoy the pacing of it overall. I'm really bad at just summarizing what I liked and what I didn't, just because I sometimes just pick up books for enjoyment and I don't think too much about them. Head empty, no thoughts is basically my motto. Oh, and the next 4.5 star read is Splatted Barbarians. Yes, I read it, okay? TikTok, I read this book because of you. I saw it everywhere and I was like, no, this might not be my cup of tea. I don't think that I will enjoy this book. I like smut, I like sci-fi now. I didn't think that this is something that I wanted to potentially pick up. But you know what? I saw the audiobook was like 5 hours and 10 minutes long and I was like, okay, you know what? I changed my mind. I'm gonna read it. I want to see what this is about, okay? And so I did. I read it and I liked it. And then yesterday I actually finished the second book and I think I'm gonna read the whole series now. And it's basically about these women who were kidnapped by aliens. And then they were transported to this planet, and it's basically this icy planet, and they had to survive. And in this book, our main character stumbles upon this alien, and he chooses, I mean, this parasite inside him chooses her to be his mate, okay? And so he tries to protect her, but it's very 18 plus. So if you're an innocent or a minor, don't read this book. I don't recommend it. Take it slow. Take your time growing up, okay? 4.5 star, very, very, very enjoyable. I loved it. I love that it has more focus on romance rather than sci-fi or world building and stuff. There's still a little bit, but it's more romance, okay? All right, 4.75 stars. One book, 3 words. The Love Hypothesis. I'm so happy I read this book. This book is so good. I loved it. I normally don't enjoy books that are overhyped, but Esme did recommend this book to me. She was talking about it a few times and I was like, okay, you know what, I'm gonna write it down and I'm gonna read it when I have the chance. And I was just in this contemporary mood after Fearless tore my heart out and I was like, I need to read this, okay? I'm looking for something light and fun, and I did. I read it. Even though the next book I'm gonna talk about is a 5-star read, I would say that The Love Hypothesis is my favorite book of March, just because of how I enjoyed it. It didn't make me anxious. A little bit it did, but not too much. I just enjoyed the romance, the fake dating trope, and it's everything. And the last book that I'm gonna talk about is my buddy read with Esme, which is The Bridge Kingdom by Danielle L. Jensen. I'm currently reading the second book and I'm finishing the second book today. I started it in March, but I wasn't in the mood for it because I wanted to read some light books rather than fantasy. I postponed the sequel, but anyway, The Bridge Kingdom, Esme and I read 60 pages a day and we finished it together in a live reading sprint and it was magnificent. If you're looking for a fun fantasy romance, this book is it. What I enjoyed about this book is there is something happening in each chapter. The pacing is fantastic. It is fast-paced, but not that it happens too fast. You don't get bored in this book. You can fly through it instantly, and I really enjoyed the chemistry between the two characters. The bath scene or the towel scene in the beginning. Also, each chapter ends in a way that you just need to know what happens next. And I'm telling you from experience, even in the second book, Danielle L. Jensen follows the same formula, ending each chapter on a cliffhanger, but when you read it, you know, so that your brain overthinks and you need to read what happens just to calm yourself down, because you really think with every chapter shit's gonna hit the fan. Sometimes it does, sometimes it's fine, but I just really enjoyed the writing style of the author and the writing structure. It basically follows our main character Lara, who gets betrothed or gets married to Aaron, who is the king of Ithacana, and basically it's this other competitive kingdom. They have this bridge and they take in the supplies and then they trade with the other kingdoms, but they keep a lot for themselves. And so everybody thinks that they keep so much, that they are so rich, and Lara is being basically sent there to overthrow this rich kingdom and save her people from starvation. Overall, this book is a 5-star read, and I was choosing between this book and The Love Hypothesis for my favorite read of the month. And while I do really love this book, and I did rate it 5 stars, I chose The Love Hypothesis as my favorite book of the month because it was so fun and brainless. This book has tension, and that angst that something's gonna happen just made me a little bit anxious, so I went with The Love Hypothesis in the end. So yeah, these are all the physical books that I read, but overall in total there were 15 books that I read. 1 book with no rating, 1 2-star read, 1 2.75 star read, 1 3-star read, 3 3.25, 1 3.5, 1 3.75, 2 4 stars, 1 4.5, 1 4.75 stars, and 1 5-star. Overall, I would say this is pretty good, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. I don't normally do wrap-ups. I genuinely didn't want to do this wrap-up because I'm so bad at explaining what I think about the books. My short-term memory is very bad, and also long-term, to be honest, my memory in general. If you're just here to figure out what books are fun to read and what books I didn't enjoy, I got you. Don't worry. But yeah, I'm not particularly eloquent. This is why I call myself a booktuber and not a book reviewer. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely day, and I will see ya when I see ya. All this talking made me hungry.